Welcome to our first edition of Talking Sculpture. We are going to focus on a very interesting minimalist Japanese sculptor, Masayuki Nagare.
In 1943, Nagare enlisted in the Imperial Japanese Navy and began training as a combat pilot. Though his level of education spared him the position of kamikaze pilot, his training did include ditching his plane into enemy targets as a last resort. Many years later, during the attack on the World Trade Center in New York, Nagare was well aware of the irony as one of his own stone sculptures, Cloud Fortress, was destroyed as a result of terrorists using airplanes in the same manner in which he had been trained nearly 60 years prior. After the war, Nagare, seeking consolation, embarked on a years-long journey across Honshu Island. His growing appreciation of landscape and local crafts included a fascination with grave markers that had survived wartime bombings and led to an enduring love of stone and a belief that it could embody spirits.
One of the things that's very particular to this sculptor is a sense of what he called warehada. Almost all of his works have this, and so what typifies his work is the contrast of the polished stone playing against that of the rough stone. This is also a metaphor for, the idea of the yin-yang philosophy that he was interested in. He was also interested in Zen Buddhism, Shintoism. All of that comes into play with a piece like this.
What I like about a lot of Nagare's sculpture is that he plays with gravity. He takes these massive objects, lifts them up onto improbable points, like Cloud Fortress at the World Trade Center. These two massive pyramids lifted on opposing corners being drawn into the center. Here with our piece, he's done the same thing. Sits up on its toes, this massive object, lifting it up, making it much lighter than it really is, visually. Just like Gaston Lachaise did with his monumental Standing Woman.
One of the things that defines a great sculptor from just a good sculptor is that a great sculptor has moments of genius. As we see in this piece, what is the bit of genius that Nagare brings to this work is this chiseling that he does within the base. He has taken something and he has incised into the base, and it brings forth a lot of thoughts as to what that means and why did he lay this red into this stone like this. Is there a play between this sense of maybe an underworld or fire and elements, which is underneath and separates it from this very elevated part of the sculpture, which brings us to the title of the sculpture. This work is called Remembered Promise, and we don't have the artist here today to explain exactly what he was thinking, so we bring our own thoughts as to what we feel that means. For me, I find that this work is very inviting. This center area is almost like the chamber of a heart. It asks us to move inside of it, to move through it. This element here stretches long, almost like as a sense of memory, to a remembered promise.
Among his contemporaries, Nagare was known as the samurai sculptor. He was known as the samurai sculptor not just because of his Japanese heritage, but because in his youth he apprenticed under a master swordsmith in Japan while studying the arts of the samurai. Many collectors of fine sculpture may not know how to visualize the nature of a Japanese sword blade. So we brought with us today a small tanto executed by artist Emiliano Carrillo to illustrate the gentle lines and curves that he would have learned in his apprenticeship and how he instilled them into stone in his later work. When I hold a Japanese sword in my hands, I'm simply moved, and I have the same feeling when I see this work by Nagare.
We're known for dealing in very well-established artists. That's not hard to do. But what we do that is very important is to work with artists whose reputations need to be reclaimed. You look at an artist like Nagare, and he was shoulder to shoulder with Picasso and Miro. There's incredible value in this.
I find it exciting when I find a small work by a sculptor whose reputation is in monumental public sculpture. Those pieces are often walked by and not even noticed. But when you can get one in your own home, it's a real beautiful thing.